Black History Month, should it be canceled? I'm harping on this, y'all, because I feel that a point needs to be made. Now, y'all kind of know about what I said last week, but this week I wanted to talk about the man, or many call the father of Black History Month, Dr. Carter G. Woodson. All right, and so I want to share a clip with you all, because I want to put this in context. I want to frame this up properly. And do me a favor, if you just getting here, go on ahead, share this out, hit the like button, hit the share button, and make sure you hit the subscribe button if you truly like the content that we produce here with the Finance Road Show. But I wanted to talk about, again, Carter G. Woodson, and Black History Month, the creator of Black History Month, which was originally started as Negro History Week. All right. So the man didn't just give us something. The man just didn't give us the shortest month. There was a whole rationale for it. But I want to watch this.
That blacks were inferior and their history had no educational value. But his name wasn't Ron, and it was the 19th.
All right, let's start this from the beginning. So to get started, this is one of my favorite creators out here in these social media streets. Her name is Kimberly Renee. Y'all know I'm a history buff. She covers all kinds of history, Black history, and she does a very, very good job of doing it. So she did a piece on Dr. Carter G. Woodson, Dr. Carter G. Woodson, want to put some respect on his name, right? He was an educated man, and he had some great things to say about Black folks. But I want to, again, set the context with her rendition and her framing of Dr. Carter G. Woodson, because I feel she did an excellent job. So let's start it from the top.
He told him that blacks were inferior and their history had no educational value, but his name wasn't Ron, and it was the 1910s, not 2023. You may have heard that Black History Month began as Negro History Week, which was the brainchild of the second Black person to graduate with a PhD from Harvard University, Dr. Carter G. Woodson. While completing his dissertation, one of the committee members, Edward Channing, who'd go on to win the Pulitzer Prize for History in 1926, told Carter that the Negro had no history. So Carter set out to prove him wrong, a mission he'd begun years earlier. He knew Black folks were flat out being ignored and misrepresented in American history and beyond. And no academic journals were countering this racist scholarship. The American Historical Association, which would take dues from Black people but not allow them to attend conferences, didn't seem to be interested in the Negro experience at the time. So after releasing his first book in 1915, The Education of the Negro Prior to 1861, Carter co-founded the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History and then launched the Journal for Negro History. With these resources in tow, he began urging Black schools and organizations to find ways to celebrate Black achievements. One group, Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, the Black men's fraternity founded in 1911 at HBCU Howard University, responded with the creation of Negro History and Literature Week in 1924. Some notable cues include Langston Hughes, Bayard Rustin, Jesse Jackson, Shaq, Michael Jordan, No B, and Lori Harvey's stepdaddy, Steve. It was this Negro History and Literature Week that would inspire fellow Q Dr. Carter G. Woodson to create Negro History Week 2 years later in 1926. The week would continue to grow in interest and expand to Black History Month in 1976.
Now, I don't know about y'all, but she dropped a lot of gems right there. There's one name in particular that I feel should be talked about even more. Just real quick as we talk about this, Dr. Carter G. Woodson, he talked about Bayard Rustin. Bayard, in my opinion, gets no love when it comes to this Black History Month, when it comes to this civil rights. But he was actually one of the major strategists. He was one of the major strategists for Black history. Black man, Black gay man. But again, our community, society is very anti-gay, or homophobic, so to speak. But we don't talk about Bayard and give him the props that he deserves, in my opinion. Now, for those of you who are watching in the chat, have any of you ever heard of Bayard Rustin before? He worked and walked hand in hand with Dr. King. He came up with many of the strategies for some of the marches and protests that Dr. King and many of the SLC put together. So, and Stick, I always get them confused. But you got to give him credit, right? Because we're talking about Black History Month. It's important to start to highlight these folks and the contribution that they've given. But I'll talk about him another day. but I will be remiss if I did not bring him up today. But again, back to Dr. Carter G. Woodson, right? So, creator of Negro History Week, creator of books, all kinds of scholarships. And I know some of y'all probably like, Kamari, you're a money guy. Why are you talking about history? Well, here's the thing. I wouldn't be able to talk about money if it wasn't for some of these folks like a Banyard Rustin, like a Dr. Carter G. Woodson, had they not put together their contribution for me, right? You might not be able to see it visibly, but it's there. We stand on the shoulders of giants. So I feel it's important that we talk about that, because y'all know I talk about money from a Black perspective. If we're not talking about Black history, if we're going to just throw out Black history, what am I here for? What are we going to do? Because to me, when it talks about money, when it's time to talk about money, we can't take our history out of it. We can't take our position out of it in the world that is, right? We can't take our overall existence in this landscape that we call the United States and the world out of the context of talking about money and wealth, because many of the things that have happened to us were political, were historical, were intentional, and putting us in a second-class citizen spot. Now we're fighting against that. We have always been fighting against that for a long, long time. But I feel like, again, this conversation that we should cancel Black History Month or Black History Month is no longer relevant. We got to talk about that. We got to talk about that. And so, again, Dr. Carter G. Woodson talked about money, talked about politics, talked about wealth, right? And so, as he put it in his great book, The Miseducation of the Negro, came out in 1933, many of those same things still exist today. So I wanted to go a little bit deeper into those things today, because, again, if we're talking about money, we're talking about Black wealth, you cannot separate them from history, from Black history. So I feel it's important. Now, some of y'all may disagree, but I feel it's important that we go back and we connect the dots with all of those.